Welcome to Journey Through the Gate, your paranormal portal podcast, as we delve into the many questions and wonders brought on by the supernatural experience. What's on the other side of the gate? Let's find out together. Welcome, listeners, to This Side of the Gate. And tonight I have one of my favorite people, actually several of my favorite people tonight. Tonight I have my co-host with me, Mr. Steve Stockton. You all know him. Come on in, Steve.
Hi, Cisco. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We're going to have a blast. And also, I have a very special guest. Now, I met this gentleman a couple of months back, but I have been watching him for a long time, and I'm going to guess that you have too. So I'm going to start off by just describing him a little bit. Maybe you can kind of guess. He's a paranormal investigator. He's a technical specialist. He's a writer, an accomplished author. He's a guest speaker at many, many, many Paracons and all kinds of ghost fun there. He is probably been in your living room a few times on the wonderful, one of my favorite shows, Haunted Case Files. That's right. I have Mr. Jack Kenna with us tonight. Come on in, Jack. How you doing?
Hey, doing good. How you guys out there tonight? Thanks for having me on the show, and it's a pleasure and an honor to be here tonight too. So just so you know.
Oh, the pleasure is all ours. Oh, I'm so glad to have you. You're so busy, Jack. My goodness, when do you have time to just be Jack?
I don't. This is Jack. This is who Jack is. I shouldn't say I don't. This is me. I am busy. As a matter of fact, I'm so busy, I am talking to you from Montreal, Canada right now,
Wow.
In a hotel room where we were going to be filming a new show tomorrow. So
wonderful?
I'm going to be interviewed for it. It's called, what is it, Carly? My Worst Nightmare.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, that's it. I believe this is actually season 2 of the show. So,
wow.
Yeah, they asked me to come up last week, or actually this week. They said, can you come up and film this weekend? I'm like, what happens? I'm free. Yes, I can.
Isn't that wonderful?
So
I remember you asking. I'll tell you.
Talking to you.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you. What the people don't realize is when you see some people, you see them for so long on television shows, especially the ones we all, clamor for, and that's the paranormal and, the supernatural and all that stuff. You've been seeing them for so long. You don't realize that a lot of the people that you see are so down to earth. I've met Amy Allen. Amy is just so sweet. She's just a wonderful, down to earth human being. So many of these people that I've gotten a chance to meet. And I have to say, Jack, you're definitely one of them. You're just really down to earth, extremely approachable. We had some great conversations not too long ago at the Gettysburg Bash, and I'm an idiot. I got a recorder and a microphone in my I never pulled it out once because I was just so intrigued just to have the conversation, and it's wonderful. And I'll tell you, I love the Haunted Case Files. I wouldn't say it if I didn't. I like the way they do it. And I thought, just in the beginning, we could talk a little bit about that because most people probably know you from there and, of course, your books. But I really like the way they lay it all out. You get to tell the story a little bit. And, of course, they do some reenactment. And we joke a lot on Facebook back and forth where we're all kind of watching it together. Goes, oh, fake Jack got pushed down, You
get great. You remember that, do you? Fake
I do.
Jack. You remember that, right?
Yeah, fake Jack just lost it.
Yeah. That's Michael Coughlin. He's actually I haven't met him, but I've looked into him a little bit. He's actually a pretty talented individual, but he is fake Jack. Yes, he is fake Jack.
But that's so funny. But they have to do it.
I just want to give him a little plug because I know he's a really nice guy. He's a friend of the producer.
That's nice.
And he's a singer and a songwriter and also an actor. He's been on a few different things. And if anybody remembers the very first original Nacho Fries commercials where it's like a conspiracy thing, he's the guy running around telling everybody it's a conspiracy. So, in the commercial, Nacho Fries.
But isn't it funny?
He does a lot of other stuff. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
He was also on Paranormal Survivor season 2, I telling his own story of his haunting when he was a kid.
Yeah,
so
see?
A lot of people don't know that either.
There's so many connections.
So anyway,
There's so many connections, but you know, I have on this show before spoken about a lot of the different shows, and they kind of overdo it or whatever. I really don't think Haunted Case Files adds too much to it. They might say, you know, okay, the wind blew and everybody's hair is going or whatever, and it might not have been exactly that way when you're describing it. But I don't think they overdo it. There is some dramatization, but not a lot, you know. And I like the fact that they give you guys a chance to tell your stories, and of course, you know, paranormal investigators or people that have had haunted houses, they're going to have the best stories because it's just so much of it, you know, you get to go through. And especially you. Now, you've been doing this how long? Really, investigating or interested?
Officially on a team since 2009. I've been doing, you know, just into the paranormal investigating and doing stuff on my own for pretty much ever. I mean, but officially on a team with Spirits of New England, since 2009, and when we got into it, we went full bore into it. Mm-hmm. We had a couple of things the very first year. You know, we started off like a lot of people. We learned from TAP, from Jason and Grant, from the Ghost Hunter guys. You know, we went to the events. We learned as much as we could from them and other friends of ours who had been doing this for many, many years, a lot longer than we were. And then we just went to kind of full bore into trying to help people with residential haunting.
Right.
And it we had a year we had absolutely nothing. Our team had 1 year, our second year we had no investigations at all. And then all of a sudden, it almost kind of exploded in a way. And the next year we had all kinds of investigations. By 2000, and in 2010, because 2009 we didn't have too much, and then 2010 we had the USS Constitution for the Navy.
Wow.
2011 got a little slow, but it picked up again, and then and it's just been, I don't know, it's been a whirlwind ride from there. And all we ever really did was focused on residential cases, trying to help people.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
That's our team's big focus, just trying to help people.
Right. And weed it all out.
The TV stuff by accident. We actually fell into the TV stuff by accident.
Right. Right.
You know, we got an email that everybody else on the East Coast got. Kind of looked at it, and Ellen and I, Ellen McNeil is the founder of Spirits of New England. We said, do you want to contact them? I don't know. Do we really care? Let's, out of curiosity, let's, you know, check them out a little bit. And I ended up giving them a call, and I talked to them for the woman on the phone there for 2 hours. She answered all my questions, which was unusual. They usually don't want to answer any of your questions.
Right.
And I answered all her questions, and then she goes, I really want you to do this show. Do you have it, you know, anybody who would want to tell their story? And we had just done a younger couples investigation a year before, and I said, well, I'll reach out to them and just ask them and see. And they decided to, and that was for season 1 of Paranormal Survivor, and that was Shalisa and Brian at the Rhode Island case that we did. I think the episode was called When Spirits Talk, or something like that.
Yeah. It's interesting, the different paths that it's taken. And I'll tell you, those are the shows that I like a lot. And actually, there's an awful lot that come out of Canada. You know, I know you know that because you're sitting there right now. But they really do have a good way of doing it. And I love the ones that get into a little bit of the history of, you know, the property and all. It's like kind of the old school way of doing it, you know, and then the reenactment while the person's telling the story. It's amazing. And I think those are the ones that intrigue me the most, you know, as well. You want to see the paranormal survivor. You want to hear how it started amping up, you know, what happened. And then a little bit of what did you find out? What did it turn out to be? Because I often find in these cases, and it sounds so funny to say it, in my head it sounds funny, so it's going to sound really funny when I say that I think ghosts a lot of times are misunderstood, Jack, you know?
Totally agree.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, they might only be able to do one or two things. Yeah. And I've heard a lot of your interviews and heard you speak too. And Of course, you're going to be scared if you're sitting on a couch and all of a sudden, dishes start flying out of your cabinet. Of course, it's going to scare you because the unknown always does. But once the investigation gets underway and we start to find out that if it is an actual ghost, that might be all it can do, to get attention.
Right.
And
but there may also be another meaning behind it, and that's what came out of a case in Chicopee, Massachusetts, where the guy was being hit, punched at night, woken up by being punched, slapped, scratched, hit, sitting in his living room having a spoon knocked out of his hand while he's trying to eat a bowl of cereal. All these things, crazy things happen. So you'd think, and he was convinced. They were convinced it was something demonic. Well, it turned out to be a friend of his who had been murdered years earlier. He was there when it happened. Was trying to reach out to him and tell him to stop being stupid because he was doing something he shouldn't have been doing.
Right.
He had a new family. And he could have gotten in big trouble for some stuff he was doing. So all this violent reaction, and when I was finally able to tell him, we did the investigation, I actually made a connection with this individual. I was able to describe him to him and tell him and make a connection for him that way. He suddenly realized, oh my God, this makes sense, because when all that happened, his friend was killed. They were young, they were in their 20s, they were tough guys in Cape Cod. And what did they do? Punched each other all the time, hit each other, knocked stuff out of each other's hands, just for the hell of it, because they were the tough guys in Cape Cod, right? So he goes, oh my God, it makes sense. Even the tall, over 6 foot shadow figure, that was a high buddy.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh my God, Jack, this makes total sense. And I was able to describe his friend to him, right down to what he was wearing the night he was murdered. Because again, this guy was there when it happened. And he's like, how did you know this? I'm like, look, I don't know. This came through, right? But my point is, you had all this negativity stuff happening to him. He thinks it's something demonic and evil, and it's his friend trying to tell him, stop being stupid.
Yeah, stop being stupid before you get in trouble. Yeah. I remember you telling that story before, so I know a little bit more about it, and I can honestly, I can see that happening. Look, I'm on the other side or wherever he was, from. We don't know if he had crossed visitation. I don't know which, but he knew enough to say, look, man, you need to quit doing what you're doing. You got a family now, and you're going to get in a lot of trouble if you don't stop being stupid. So that makes so much sense, and that's my whole point. I think a lot of times things are misunderstood, or a ghost connects into an energy, like you're depressed, they're depressed, or you miss your family, they miss their family, and there's something about the energy as well. Like some ghosts are drawn to certain people, like that old adage, like attracts like. So I try to warn people all the time, and I know you do too, try to be upbeat, try to be, keep your vibration higher and stuff. It's just, it sounds so simple, I think this is one subject, the whole paranormal, supernatural, that it just seems so confusing until you step back from it and you look at it and go, it's the most simplistic, complicated thing I've ever been involved in,
Yeah. Right, because it's not necessarily easy for people to be positive.
Right.
Especially with people who have been through a lot in their lives. And they've repressed things, and they don't want to talk about certain things, and they're burying all that negativity, but it's there, and it's ramping itself up. And I do believe negativity, negative is drawn to negative, which is why they end up, a lot of times these people with these real big issues and stuff that haven't addressed them end up with negative type hauntings. I agree. Just drawn to them. It's like the moth to the flame, and you're putting out that negativity, and you've got to change. You've got to try to change, and that's hard to do,
It is.
Because we're not talking about simple things here. We're talking about people who've been through some horrific ordeals,
Sure, and it seems so unfair.
They haven't reached out for help.
Right, but it also seems so unfair, too, to think of something, one of the saddest things I ever heard of is a lot of times that, kids that are abused or something like that, or somebody has had an abusive life, all these things start coming and attaching to them because they've got this, like you said, an unresolved problem, anger, negativity, ramping up inside of him. And it seems like, okay, well, here's this now, But I think that's great advice. Get it out somewhere. Talk to somebody,
And that's part of what we do with, for lack of a better term, our clients. I mean, we don't charge them anything, obviously, but, the people that come to us for help, we get into all that with them. And that's part of this 12-page form we have them fill out.
Yes.
Has anything happened in your life? Is this, tell us about, we gather all this information from them, and then we have to try, you become almost like a psychologist yourself, but you got to point them to a real one,
Yes.
but they will open up to you because they feel they can talk, for whatever reason, they feel they can talk to us more than anybody else.
Isn't that
I don't
funny,
know why
though?
that.
Yeah.
I guess it's easier to talk to a stranger, right?
Yeah, but you're not the only paranormal investigator that I've had on this show that has said that, and it seems like the groups that are very successful are, first of all, they have a good chemistry within the group. Everybody understands why they're doing it. Whether, you might have somebody on your group that is extremely into the tech and they're interested in the science of it, but will give room to the one that's doing it for the, to help and everything else. It's amazing. And they seem to be the ones that are most successful in this and the busiest. And it just has a lot to do with heart. Why are you in it? What are you doing? You guys want to help. I know you do. And I know your group does, and that's why I'm in it, and the stories, gosh, the stories, it's amazing some of these things that happen, I mean, look at you, you've been telling stories forever, you haven't run out yet.
A lot more too.
Right, and talking about the story.
I got one I made up years ago. It turned into something else. So
and that's that's why
urban legend. I ended up telling a story to my kids quite a long time ago during a Halloween. Ended up being a local urban legend.
Wow.
I only found this out last year.
Isn't that something? Maybe you were just channeling it and you didn't realize it, which is, Steve and I have talked about this a lot of times, like Slender Man, like what came first, the chicken or the egg? Was Slender Man really is there really some kind of an entity that was putting this into the guy's head and he just thought he was making it up? You know what I mean? You never know with this subject. So that's amazing.
Well, I draw from that energy and actually manifest physically like a tulpa or
a tulpa.
Walter Gibson in The Shadow, I love that story.
Do you know that story, Jack?
I've heard of it. I don't know if I know it in detail, but I know I've heard it mentioned before. I can't say I really know the tale. But go
ahead and tell it real quick, Steve.
About.
It was Walter Gibson. What was that? Go ahead and tell it real quick, Steve.
Yeah, the guy that wrote all the Shadow, the Pulp Fiction and the movies and things back in the 30s and 40s. The guy was very, very prolific. There's hundreds of books and radio plays and scripts and things. And it actually got to the point where guests in his home would see a figure in a slouch hat with a scarf, which was Lamont Cranston, the guy who was the Shadow. And it was like Walter always felt like that he had poured so much into that character and spent so much time thinking about it and dwelling on it that it manifested and came to life, so to speak, and started running around doing things. And there were several people that witnessed it.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, and I think you can do that. I think you can manifest it. Yeah.
Yeah,
especially with somebody like that who's putting a lot into that character, and it becomes part of him. Really, it's almost like a projection of part of him.
Makes you wonder what might be in Stephen King's
you're putting
house.
part of your soul into it, so it becomes its own entity.
Yeah.
In my particular case, it was just a story I told once to my kids and a couple of their friends while taking them. We were walking their friend home on a Halloween night, and I totally made it up, total fiction. And the one kid wouldn't believe me when I finally told him, no, it's all made up. No, I know, I heard about this before. No, it's made up. It's really made up, right? And that was kind of how it ended. And I never thought of it until a year ago, or maybe a couple years ago now. My son we were talking, and I think the movie It came on or something like that. He goes, hey, Dad, I ever tell you about because the story I made up was there was this old bum lived in the woods, and we were by the woods. He lived in the woods, and everybody kind of left him alone. But there's one Halloween, little kids started disappearing, and people would spot this clown around the woods.
Oh, man.
So, the guy was the bum was dressing up as a clown every Halloween and stealing, kidnapping kids and taking them down to his shed in the woods. So, I just totally made it up. And then the rest of the story was, he got caught trying to steal 2 kids one time. Like, one of the parents called the cops go after him, and they end up killing him and shooting him, and they find out he was taking the kids and eating them.
Oh,
right?
Wow.
And so they found all the bones. They're like, the kids are like, what? I'm like, made up kids. No story, fake. Don't worry.
So Jack is responsible for all these clowns over the past couple of years that have been coming out of the woods and stuff now.
Maybe I am. I don't know. I could be. I don't know.
Isn't that
weird.
Amazing?
So my son got telling me about, hey, there was, Dad, this story goes around about this guy a clown that lived in the woods, or the guy who lived in the woods dressed up as a clown, and he'd, capture kids and everything else. And he goes, and every so often people claim they see him still, and kids, one time all got these, clubs and baseball bat, everything together. You're going to go down into the woods where the old shed is and beat the guy up and chase him out. And I'm like, wait, what did you just say? Yeah, I remembered it. Yeah, he's like, I said, who told you that story? Where'd you hear that story from? Well, we think a couple of our friends. I said, no. You remember one Halloween? And he goes, oh my God, you told us that story. I said, yes. I said, people see him? Yeah. In my story, he died.
Isn't that something,
they
though?
Believe it. He goes, I'll tell you, in high school, it still goes around. They still believe it was true. I'm like, oh my God. I've created an urban legend that people see them. People see them. And it's like, that's how the imagination works, right?
Yes.
People believe something so much, they start to manifest it and see it.
Wow.
And I told the story once. That was it.
That was it. That was enough. That's amazing. And, you wonder if a lot of this, is urban legend or whatever. I mean, you and I have talked about it ourselves. It's like, in a lot of these shows, everything's a demon. Everything's a demon. You yourself have only come across that very rare. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've been running into it more lately, but I know why.
Yeah. Okay.
I do know why. But yeah, usually it's very rare. I mean, for many, many years, I never ran into anything like that until the last 3 years, and it happened shortly after. I was talking to a friend of mine who's a priest. He's also psychic, and he was telling me, he goes, Jack, he goes, you have this very strong light about you. He said light of God or whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm going to pray for you to have a demonic case and get demonic case. Like, God, no, don't do that. Please, no. I'm going to, because you can handle them, he tells me. A year later, I got my first one.
Oh, no.
And now it's been like almost one a year. I'm dealing with one right now, as a matter of fact. And it's like, oh my God, he actually did it. Because I asked, he goes, yeah, I did.
With friends like that, who needs enemies? But that's the thing. A lot of people are talking about it all the time. I mean, and of course the shows, there's some shows out there just, really everything is that, I don't know. Steve and I have talked a lot about, I really think there's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now, and that can definitely open things up. Faith seems to go down, and everybody's all over the place. So, I mean, absolutely, if you believe in this, I really think we're kind of in this constant battle of evermore anyway. And if you don't know what the battle of evermore is, look it up, listeners, because it's true. It really is true. Yeah. But there are a lot of things, like we said in the beginning, that are just human spirits, or the essence of a human being, whatever you want to call a ghost, that has decided to stay for whatever reason, or in some cases don't even realize they're dead, or they're not putting things together. We really don't know how they see things, and I don't think it can all fit in a file cabinet real easily either, because each human being is going to be different in how they perceive things and what they're going through. What do you find, Jack, is like the multiple reasons they stay? Some is fear, and some is not knowing that they're dead. How do you explain? How do you do it? And you, like you said, it's almost like therapy. You have to explain to somebody, hey, you've passed. It's hard.
Very, very carefully.
Yes, yes.
Because first you have to, as an investigator, first you got to even figure out what's really going on. Then you got to figure out what you're dealing with.
Yep.
And then you got to figure out why they're there, and do they even know they've deceased? So it's a little bit of psychology involved.
Yes.
So talking to them, say, hey, and you're talking to them like a person. You try to get just information from them if you can. And sometimes that can be difficult to do. They don't want to talk to you. You try to reach out in other ways, but you try to get a sense for just, hey, I'm here to talk to you. I'm here to find out your story. What's important to you? Why are you here? Do you know you're bothering these people? Do you know this really isn't your home anymore? And that's a good kind of, once you start getting into things, that's a good open toward getting where you're getting at.
Right.
Hey,
Yeah.
You're not really here anymore,
Yeah.
physically. And you gotta, but it's like anything else, because if you just say, hey, you're dead, you can shock the hell out of them, and they'll shut right down.
Absolutely.
Or they'll lash out. You know.
You and I had a great conversation talking about that, and I said the worst thing when I've had to do it is in the middle of a battlefield. Now you've got, here we are in, like you and I were in Gettysburg, and that place is it's just amazing. I mean, the energy there is just so cumbersome, and I feel as a soldier, I'm feeling for all these guys, and you have some that are so aware. I think they almost see into our world too, and they see the time passing, and everything is just so confusing to them in some cases, because here you are dressed differently, you're talking differently, things look different to them, and they tend to stick to the wood line or that house or that place that they were. It's very hard, and it's very much like counseling or therapy, and first you got to get through the communication barrier. And you and I spoke about old school equipment like dowsing rods, and I know that you like those too. When you want to tell us a little bit about why you like to go to that route sometimes?
A lot of times, well, there's more times than not these days. I really like to go to the dowsing rods because you can feel the energy that's coming through them.
Yep.
If you open up to it, and you're using your energy, but you also go asking for that communication through those rods, so that energy is passing through you to the rod to give you the responses. You're a conductor, right? So you can feel the type of energy that you're getting and the type of potentially even emotion that's attached to that energy, and whether it's a confused energy or a anxious type of energy, but you can feel it, and so it gives you a better insight into what you're talking to or who you're talking to, and you become a little bit more empathic with it, right? I mean, all this stuff is, people say, well, it's all subjective. Yes, of course it is, but I can't say it's evidence of anything, but I know as a paranormal investigator and believing in the afterlife and knowing there is one, if a spirit's communicating with me, I know what it's feeling or what it's sensing by using those divining rods and letting that energy come through. And it's helpful. So it's helpful. It's also helpful with demonic cases, because you can tell something's lying to you. Demonic cases aren't a lot of times what people think. It's not always what you see in Hollywood. A lot of them are very quiet cases. Not much happens, but there's something going on. But there's hints to it. But you can sense with them. You can sense that energy without directly letting it, come into you to communicate. So, again, you're just picking up on the energy, and a lot of times they're just. It's much more useful.
Yes,
and that's why I like to use them.
I like them too.
And you can also search for things with the divining rods. You can find locations of different things, portals, pretty much anything. If you concentrate on something, those divining rods will usually take you to where it might be. They even still, people don't know this, a lot of people don't know this, city workmen still use them today to find pipelines and gas lines and everything else. They actually do. That's the God's truth.
It's absolutely true. And to find things, like you said, you touched on that, but I mean, even inanimate objects, of course, you've got to, it has a lot to do with the user too. Whether you're able to concentrate on something, and I can't explain how it works, but it does. And you're absolutely right about the feeling and the emotion of it, because gosh, I wish I wasn't such an empath, but I am. And being an empath, I know you're one yourself. You can tell walking into a room right away your energy. So I would need also the dowsing rods to kind of, basically, it's just accentuating the energies, and it's telling me that what I'm feeling is correct. Okay, I'm on the right wavelength here. I'm getting that. And it helps a lot.
Well, and it can help you with much faster communication, too.
Yes.
Because immediately you feel that energy and you can sense what's going on. You can start asking a question and tell them how to communicate with you through those divining rods, and get some very quick answers, potentially to some of your questions. And copper rods are very sensitive to energy, so they're going to react very quickly.
Right.
Yeah, and it can be I think sometimes just much more easier for their spirit to manipulate it.
Right.
And people say, well, you're doing that yourself. Yeah, maybe, I don't know. I don't think so, though. But, but it is subjective that way. You can't present it as evidence of paranormal activity. But if you're just trying to help people with a haunting, it can give you what you need to know in order to help them.
And confirming a feeling you're already getting as well.
You already have. Yeah.
And that's my main thing.
They're having.
The
family is having.
Exactly.
Being affected.
Right.
So it's not when we're using those, it's not about proving or disproving the existence of spirit. It's trying to get answers to solve a question or solve a problem.
Right. Right.
It's not about proving the existence of anything. It's for a whole other purpose.
Right. And I know it, like I said, too, it depends on, the team that's going in there. If you have one person doing this over here and you've got somebody over here on the tech and everybody's just meshing together like a beautifully written song, a good team does that. And, somebody over here on this side on another piece of equipment might be getting exactly what you're getting, just in a different way. And that's just, it's wonderful. And if you've got people who are sensitive, whatever their gift or talent, whatever you want to call it might be, and everything is all put together like that, that's just a beautiful team. I know a lot of teams.
You get that diversity and everybody working together. Back when I was part of a team in the late 80s, we had a scientist, we had a medium, we had a stage magician. That guy was invaluable. He knew all kinds of trickery and sleights of hand, and would think of ways, maybe they're doing it this way because you can do this and fake that. It was great the way everybody meshed together and the talents came out and overlapped, and it was amazing.
Well, the more diversity you have, the better your team can be too.
Absolutely.
Just because of that. Not that diversity doesn't cause some issues sometimes either, but
it's true.
Absolutely.
Well, when you're dealing with spirits, Jack, I don't know if you've ever come across this, but I had a friend. She's a medium, and she had on the team member was a psychic medium. Now, everybody's got their different labels and things that they do, but that's basically where they felt comfortably in those labels. And they were dealing with an entity. Now, the rest of the team is there, and, of course, they're getting all different readings and different things going on, but they were trying to stay in different parts of the room and just very quietly, to themselves, and they would write down on a notepad different feelings they had, and then everybody would go outside and kind of collaborate. Okay, we've got this so far, and then they go back in. Nobody talked during this. And what the medium was seeing, my friend, she's seeing a little boy that was very angry and putting out this, different energy and kind of erratic. And the other medium, the same spirit was manifesting in a different way to this psychic medium. Now she's seeing a man. So now we know that the same ghost can appear in different ways to the two different people in the same room at the same time. So boy, when you know that they can do that, we're up against a lot here.
Yeah, you're absolutely. Yeah, because now you're talking about something that may not be what it really is.
Exactly.
Then it'd be something not, right?
Right.
So or it's manipulating itself because maybe it is just the guy, and it wants to. Oh, I'm gonna play as a child. Too,
Yes.
And spirits that have been around for a while. I think it's like a learning experience, right? Those ones I think know they're dead, and they're just trying to manipulate things to either mess with people or make somebody else's life live in hell or whatever. Because why else hang around? I mean,
Right.
go.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't want to hang around. I want to go, man. When I go, I want to go.
Right. And you wonder why, a lot of them stick around and, stay for so long. And, you hear all kinds of theories. And I don't know. It's like Steve and I always say, it's like this puzzle that doesn't have a cover to the box, and we don't even know what kind of pieces we have here. We're trying to get these answers. It's
the whole puzzle is there.
I know, and it's just like a moving target. That's why it's just so hard, and why it's so intriguing at the same time, because you'll say to people, so you'll talk to somebody, and they'll say, "Well, ghosts can't do that." Well, how do you know? Where's the rule book?
How do you know? I don't know what a ghost can do.
Right. I don't have a clue. You and I are about the same age.
The ghost didn't get the memo that he couldn't do that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. The ghost didn't get the memo. He can't do that. Yeah.
Each one of us sitting here
that.
has been in this, at least intrigued by this since we were kids. For whatever reason, we've had that experience. We started studying. We started collecting our own personal data in this.
Yeah.
And I've been sitting here for 45 going on 50 years. I'm no closer to having an answer than I was when I started.
I have more questions than when I started. I saw my first full-body apparition when I was 6 years old. And instead of scaring me, it fascinated me. Like, what was that? That's not supposed to happen, And then that started a chain reaction that's carried me throughout my life.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's just it, right? I mean, we have these experiences, and especially if we're younger, we don't know what to make of them, or and we don't understand. Especially as a kid, you don't understand how can that not happen. We haven't learned those things can't really happen yet, right? So, that can't happen. That's not possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what happens to adults. That's not possible. I know. You know too much. Trust me, you know too much. Forget what you think you know. You don't know.
Yeah. And I think that's the wisest things I've ever heard anybody say that's in this is like, we just don't know. It's theory. It's speculation based on our own personal data and what we've collected over all these years. And, people will tell me all the time, well, ghosts don't exist, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. Disbelief in gravity is not going to keep you from falling down the stairs.
That's right.
Because
gravity doesn't exist. Okay.
Yeah, no.
I guess you can float down over the stairs there.
Right. I've been in the room with people where 4 people saw something walk, almost like a full body apparition, walk across the room, and 2 other people didn't see it at all. And I don't know what that is. If it's a personal, the human being having the experience has just as much to do with the experience than the apparition or the ghost or the entity or whatever it is. And the perception is different in some cases. And that blows my mind, because it's not like a chair going across the room,
Yeah, it's also possible they thought it's something else and didn't say anything. A flash of light, freak of light, and they just didn't think anything of it.
Right.
And everybody else saw it as a full body apparition going across the room. So, I mean, I've had that with disembodied voices, where it was at an event and we had 25 people down in Buffalo Central Terminal, and half of us heard this loud disembodied voice, and the other half heard nothing. And how do you explain that? And he was like, I heard it. I was like, yeah, we heard it. I didn't hear nothing. You guys are BSing. No, we're not. And they're like, well, how come we didn't hear it? Because that's how it works. It is. There was a time I was back there last year. Same thing happened. I didn't hear it that time, but 10 other people heard it, and I'm like, I believe it. I just didn't hear it this time. Wasn't meant for me, or whatever. I don't know. The connection wasn't right or something. But that happens a lot. That's why even with our investigators, one person can hear something, and the other person never heard it at all. But they're both in the same room together.
And that's
That
hard to
happens a lot.
explain, that kind of thing, because we can't take this and put it in a jar and make it happen on command. It's so
Right.
hard. The science part of it, the evidence part of it is so difficult because, like you said, you can have somebody with a tape recorder in room, 2, 3 people, whatever, and you're asking questions. You go back and replay the tape, and you're hearing clear voices. And I'm not talking about this, and
Yeah, I know.
I'm talking about a clear voice. I'm right here, and or whatever it is, without question. Class A EVP, whatever, and we don't hear it with our own ears. Well, now you bring in frequency, and you bring in this, and you bring. It's just it's absolutely amazing. The most amazing thing. And I don't go on a lot of investigations. I'm one of those ones that they bring in after. It's like, okay, well, we've got this situation. Can you come help communicate? Because I guess I'm a negotiator or whatever. That's why it intrigues me so much.
Oh my God, that's starting to happen to me now with other teams.
The negotiator. Yep. Bring her in. She'll talk.
I can try.
Yeah. Okay. What kind of a situation do we have? Because I don't understand all the tech. And if I don't understand the tech, I can't explain to you how it's working. So, I'm like I said, like I told you, I'm just old school. Give me my dowsing rods and let me go on and just let's be quiet and let me see what I can do here,
And I'm the same, and I don't discount it just because I don't know how it works.
Right.
Maybe I don't know that much about electricity, but I know when I flip the switch, the light comes on.
Exactly.
That's all I need to know. It works.
Right. Hey, I work in, as you know, I work for the Department of the Army. I'm an engineering technician. I know the tech.
Yes.
Okay. I know some of the stuff we use and what it's really used for. And, if you think, well, ghosts don't exist, well, then I shouldn't be getting anything through this thing, but why am I?
Exactly.
Right? I know how it works. I know what it works off of. I know what can connect with it. I would tell you this. Anything can potentially can be used to communicate with spirit.
Yep.
Anything.
Yep.
I don't care what it is. As long as you use it correctly and you explain to the potential spirit how to interact. Which I do on every single case. I tell people I could use a feather.
Yes.
And put a feather on the floor and say, raise that feather straight up in the air.
Yep.
And let's say it happens, right? It goes back down. Oh, okay. Could have been a gust of air. I don't know. Right? Do it again. Let's say it happens again. Okay. All right.
My father would dial.
One more time, and it does it again.
branch.
Is that spirit communication, or is it just coincidence? Right? But you have to look at multiple things in order to figure out if you're really communicating with a spirit or not. And that's always my point to people. It's never one thing. Multiple, right, that happen around the same time frame. Somebody has an experience. Somebody's touched. The feather comes up off the floor. We capture an EVP. All right, that's more than just coincidence. That's 3 different pieces of data, which I like to call data, that corroborate one thing you're trying to do. Right? And even scientists will tell you, sometimes, when we're doing experiments and things like that, and we're collecting data on testing and things like that, sometimes the test data doesn't always jive either. But that doesn't invalidate sometimes the answer you're looking for. It just means you have outliers or you have things you can't always consistently reproduce, regardless of the conditions that you're trying. If you could try the same conditions, you may not get the same data twice. Okay?
Right.
Doesn't invalidate the data. You're taking data points and you're looking at a bunch of it and making a determination from it. And that's what we have to do within the paranormal. If you want to look at the scientific end of it, you've got to look at a bunch of data points, gather a bunch of data from basically the same location. Even if the conditions aren't exactly the same, if you're getting consistent data, you can make assumptions from that data, right? Or you can make, I should say, conclusions from that data. And go with that, and it'll tell you, okay, yeah, this place is haunted. They're getting all this data. We're getting all these similar things all the time. Seems like spirit communication. Yeah, there's enough to validate it.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially on the time, like a lot of times people say, even like say, let's just say recording, just a simple little recorder, and you ask, is there someone here? Yes. Can you give me your name, or do you know my name? And it says Jack. This is all that that's hard to explain away. And it continues on like that. Who's the president of the United States? Lincoln. Those kind of things. That's just like, whoa. It blows your mind. And I've seen it.
It does.
And you try to explain it to other people, and they go, oh, okay, well, what was this? Or maybe, was there anything on the recording? Nope, it's brand new. It's like they used to do back in the old days on sightings, when they used to use the Polaroids. They'd open up the film. They would check it. They'd put it in the camera. Those kind of things. I mean, you really have to go through all those steps. But if you're standing in a room and there's 3 flashlights, an EMF meter on the floor, by itself, nobody near it, nobody touching it, and then there's this going on and this going on, and you say, is there anybody here? Turn on the flashlights, make the equipment go up, make the needle go up or the temperature go up and down, and all those things happen. You kind of go, okay, wow. It's pretty amazing.
Exactly. Yeah. And there is people who will tell you, well, they don't like the flashlight thing because the battery heats up and then it discharges and all that because you've got it set up to, be off slightly, but it can be turned on easily. And I'm like, yeah, okay, but if you're getting consistent answers to consistent questions, it's kind of unique. But I will tell you this: I saw this once, not thinking about it. Because a woman came to an event that we were having, and she just turned her flashlight on, and she didn't know, right? She had no clue. She was new to this, and just turned her flashlight on. I said, okay, and she started saying, well, if there's a spirit here, can you shut my flashlight off? And the damn flashlight went off. It was just turned on. Nothing else. Nothing done to it. Just turned on. And it did it consistently. Yeah. It shut the flashlight off. Now explain that to me.
Yeah. See, I can't.
And then it would come back on.
I can't. But, I think I went into this, Jack, with the kind of, I guess, the ignorance of a child in a lot of ways. Because when I started seeing things when I was younger, I always looked at the wonderment of it, But I was smart enough as a 10-year, well, let's see, I was 11. It was right after my mom had passed. And I was, a terrible long illness. And she just worried for me. I was, her only young child. And, I had to go live with another family. It was one of those situations. And I woke up, and there she is sitting on my bed. Now, I was startled. And I can just remember seeing her arm and following her arm up and seeing her all of a sudden, Mom! And she looked at me, and as soon as she did, boy, she blinked out. And I don't mean twinkled out. I don't mean faded off. She'd, bam, gone. Right. Now, this happened multiple times.
Yeah.
I would wake up, she'd be standing in the corner or sitting in the chair, different places in the room. But at 11 years old, I learned to not say anything. You have to train yourself not to be scared, which is hard. Or startled. I looked at my cat because I wanted to see how the animal reacted. And she was just looking at her and purring. Now I had another apparition that every once in a while would come through the house. And I didn't know who was in the house before. I didn't have a lot of history. It was my aunt and uncle's house. I didn't know. But I would see a darker apparition, and I don't want to say shadow person like everybody keeps putting these things on, things. But I didn't feel good about this apparition, but it never bothered me. It just kind of went through and kind of kept doing its same path. But when that one walked through, my cat would puff all up and hiss. See? Yeah. It reacted to the negativity of that apparition. But when my mother came, she would purr. So at 11... that's the kind of stuff I used. I'd look around me. What's going on around me? What's reacting? And I think that's just amazing. I've always kind of paid attention to animals and things like that.
Yes. Well, that's amazing that at that age, and being younger, you figured that out.
Well, I think it was my native upbringing because as a Native American, we were always taught to listen to the animals and the warning sounds and, the different atmosphere around.
Yep.
So in that case, I think I just fell into what I was always taught, Yeah. But that kind of told me, too, to not be scared. And I learned something else from that, too. My mom, what I call, and this could be wrong, but I call her, she was in her death state because she was still in the hospital gown. She still had the white band on her wrist. She still appeared to be very sick, and I could feel her pain. In fact, multiple times, I think that's what woke me up, was just so painful. And I'd wake up. So, but then later on, I guess she left. She crossed over. She was fine, watching over me. And then she came back later when I was a little bit more of an adult, and she was completely different. She had crossed, and now she was a visitation. And I wonder, in all your cases, what have you learned about that? Because I got very lucky. I got to see the same human, before they crossed and after they crossed, and I could tell the difference. What do you think about that and the difference in visitation? It seems like when they go over, they go through a process and heal in some way. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what happens. I've had different people tell me this, including a client I had, a residential case, who he said it was like a dream, but more than a dream, he goes, it was like real. He had a old girlfriend that he had kept in touch with, and she recently passed. She died of a drug overdose. She had gotten into drugs and all that stuff. And he remembers, like, going to her house, going in through the door, going up the stairs to her room and opening the door. He goes, and she was in the bed, but he goes, there was this man there. He goes, he just all dressed in black, a black hat on, but he had blonde. He goes, I remember he had blonde hair, but I only saw him from behind, and he was like fixing her, positioning her, and making her up and things like that. And he goes, and then once he was done, he turned, keeping his back to him, and walked away. And then she started to talk to him, and was sorry for all the problems she had caused him, and all the heartache and all that. And then he goes, so they had this conversation, and she said goodbye to him, but I'll try to see you again. And then she was gone, and the dream was over. Well, he goes, a few more nights later, or about a week later, he goes, I had a dream, and she was back again. Same thing. I go to the house, I go up the stairs. This time she's in the room by herself, but she looks like I remembered her when she was younger and healthy and everything else, and her long red hair. And I'm like, well, and she's, basically at that point was just saying goodbye to him, and that was the end of the dream. I said, did it seem really vivid to you? Yes. It wasn't a dream. A visitation. So the first I saw her was as she had just died, which was only like a day or two before. And he goes, well, who was the guy in the black? I said, Angel of Death. I said, but he's an angel. People are afraid of him, but he's an angel. He's there fixing her, preparing her to go on to the other side. That's why you saw him fixing her and preparing her and setting her so that she could communicate with him, and then he was going to take her after that, and that was whatever the angels, or whatever you want to say, allowed her to do, to communicate with him. And then when you saw her again, she had already crossed over and came back. And that was her last goodbye, for you to see her as she was, without all the problems and the baggage and the issues, and as she is on the other side now. Yeah. So he goes, wow. He goes, to him it made a lot of sense.
It does make a lot of sense. And I tell people all the time, a lot of times on this show, basically the whole reason I do this show is because I grew up with a lot of grief when I was a kid. I lost a lot of my family when I was very young. And I know Steve did too. He went to more funerals than birthday parties when he was a kid.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
And we just kind of, you can't really tell a person how to get through grief, but you can tell them how to deal with losing a loved one a little bit better, on how you think about them, And what I mean by that is, you hear a song, instead of getting sad, oh, that was her favorite song, sing it. Laugh with her. Laugh with them. Go, oh, remember that time that we had that ice cream and it fell and we were just, we did all this. It was such a great day. And try to lift your spirits and your energy a little bit. And I honestly believe that somehow helps them too. because they don't want to see you sad. They want to see you go on with life and live it to the fullest. And I mean, I got to say, that's what I've learned from the dead. The dead have taught me more about living than,
living.
Then, and I know that sounds so funny, but it's true. And, you've talked to a lot of people.
Caught up in our own lives. That's
True.
why,
True.
to live it. Yeah.
But it seems so many come back. We might be fixated on certain things that happen with them, and a lot of times they just come back to give us comfort. I'm okay. I'm okay. Go on. Be happy. Do that. I'm proud of you, and all these. I hear so many positive messages, and that's what I think a lot of this big subject is. A lot of people want to be, they get the scared and the bleeding skulls and the screaming skeletons and all that stuff. But I really find, it's all, you want to say it's all in fun, but we know that there's that side of it too. But I don't want people to forget that there's such a good side to this. There's so much hope.
There is. That's right. And don't focus on the negative. And knowing that there is hope as an investigator and doing this stuff, knowing that there is the positive out there, helps you better deal with the negative when you come across it. Mm-hmm. Because if you stand in positivity, I'll say, to the negative, they will back down. Mm-hmm. They will kind of get out of your way. Mm-hmm. They don't like. And if they can't break you down, they don't know what else to do but back off. Mm-hmm. Hey, bring the next bigger guy in. This one's too tough,
Yeah, and it seems so silly.
Get somebody else because this guy he's too positive. We can't. I don't know.
Yeah, it seems so silly, but love and light, man. Love and light. I cannot stress that enough. The tiny little pinpoint of light will brighten a darkened room. If you just keep remembering that and just try to be that way, and you find whichever way you want to say it, but that's what it boils down to, light versus darkness.
Even with a negative human spirit, which is just somebody who was miserable SOB when they were alive,
right.
Even with coming across them, sometimes the best, instead of screaming, yelling at them, doing whatever, talk to them in a different way. Say, well, you may not have believed in God or Jesus or whatever you believed in, but you know what? He believes in you. He wants you back. He wants you to come home.
Yep.
You don't need to stay here. Don't stay here. Mm-hmm. Go. Stop being miserable. You don't need to be this way for eternity.
Absolutely.
Go.
So
and
true.
Sometimes that works better than anything else. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I find at times a lot of fear. A lot of fear, and do you find too, Jack, that it depends on what era the ghost was from? I think it's so interesting to think about because, again, we go through a lot of Civil War battlefields or whatever, but you think about what were the beliefs then? They were very black and white. If you were good, you went here, and if you were bad, you went here. And I find a lot of those soldiers are just saying, I lived in hell. I fought this battle. I know what I've done. There is no good for me now. I've done too many bad things. And as a soldier, you got to sit there and you got to tell them, I understand you did your duty. And it's like, here we go. Here's the, the talking down. You have to and understand. There's been times where, people will laugh at me, but I've said, once you get that love connection, you can try to remind them of if they did have loved ones. I had one guy, I had to get him to remember a pet he had because that was the only love connection he had. He didn't have a family. He was an orphan.
Yeah.
And
you got to remember that about back then too.
Right. And I promise you, I heard a dog bark. I'm like, call him. I was like, come and get him. But it's amazing. Like I said, you got to think about the era too. And I watch a lot of these young investigators, if you want to say that, or they go in and they start provoking and things like that just to get some evidence. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you don't know what you're doing. Please don't do that.
Especially with soldiers and stuff like that.
Yes.
I mean, think about this. It wasn't it wasn't known back then, but spirit or living or whatever, they've got PTSD.
Yes. Yes.
Whether they're dead or not, they're dealing. It's their consciousness you're talking about, their soul you're talking about, it's who they were. They haven't crossed over. They're suffering from PTSD.
Absolutely.
All the things they've seen, all the stuff they had to go through, what happened to them.
Yes.
They've got some issues,
yes.
And you got to remember that when you're talking to these kind of guys in the spirit world, and realize they're in a messed up place, and they're suffering, and you don't want to go firing off guns to get a reaction out of them. You're only making it worse.
True. Absolutely agree.
We don't think about it when we're doing it, and I think that's the issue. Is we don't think about that. Some investigators don't think about that when they're doing these things. They are just trying to get evidence, but they're not thinking of the impact of this as a human soul, human, spirit, and you're having a direct impact on that individual who was shot and killed.
Yes.
And so God knows what else before that too. And they've got a lot of problems.
Yes.
And you've got to consider that. You've got to consider it.
Absolutely.
And, yeah. But I know, I watch the shows and you see, firing guns and doing this, like, oh God.
I
know somebody who told me they did that, and then after the fact they felt horrific about it because they did see a figure run on that battlefield after, and like they felt like, oh my God, what did I do? And I say, well. And then I started actually kind of picking up on something. So I kind of said to her, I said, you know what? You actually, in a way, may inadvertently done something positive there. Yeah, you did it in a bad way, but where you said this individual ran from, where they ran to, they may have been stuck there for a very long time in the middle of an open field, afraid to move.
Yes.
And when you fire, you did play the recording as cannon fire, as gun firing. She goes, it ran towards the woods and went into the woods. I said, where do you think he would run to? I don't know, where the rest of his outfit was, for protection. He may have just rejoined some others that are there.
Could be.
Maybe in a way. And that was actually what I started to sense from it all. You put them back with some others that maybe now they'll be a little bit more at ease, a little bit more at rest. I don't know.
Yeah.
Something changed for that individual, and maybe they'll realize I can move on.
Right.
It was just what I was picking up on at the time. So maybe in that particular case, something positive came out of it, but still, it's something you got to consider. You know,
and it's all individual too. You don't know what worked for at one time might not work at another. But I understand completely what you're saying because I was in one situation where I was walking by and they were all clustered in a tree, sitting in this old witness tree that had been there at the battle, and I just really felt like they were all there because that was the one thing that really wasn't changing. It was staying the same. So for their whatever they were seeing, whatever their reality was, that was the same. And they all felt, safe there. Like I said, near the wood line. Made perfect sense.
It's a place they felt safe.
Right. Yeah. And then, I've seen them also where there's several in a room and some of them aren't even aware that the other ones are there. So each perception is different. You really have to take it on a case-by-case basis and just kind of feel your way through it, with the equipment and everything else. So what were, out of all this time, what's the one case you keep going back to that just, man, that was a humdinger? I'm asking Jack Kenna.
I don't know about a humdinger. Well, it was a humdinger. But one thing that's always stuck with me as actually proof of the afterlife, at least for myself, was on the USS Constitution, and and we caught this kid's voice several times on EVP, but it was the second night of the investigation. It was just me and one of our other investigators, and the boatswain's mate who was with us was talking about the kitchen area on the main gun deck, which is towards the bow of the ship. He goes, that's the area they call the manger area. He goes, and, back in the 1800s, they didn't have refrigeration. They kept live animals on the ship. And he goes, they butcher them as they needed them. They kept cows, pigs, chickens. and you hear this kid's voice, and a bear. And you can hear it. It's a very heavy New England accent, but it goes, and a bear. And we didn't hear it at that time. Of course, that's why it's an EVP, right? And even when we heard it or came listen to it, it's like, what is he saying? And a bear or something? Well, we play it back for the captain and his officers at a reveal. And I watched the captain's jaw drop, and he looks back at his officer. He goes, Commodore Scrappy. We're like, what? What are you talking about? Commodore, what? We don't know, because we didn't know all the history. Commodore Scrappy, a black bear cub they kept on the ship as a mascot in 1932.
Wow.
Wait a minute, what? Because we didn't know about it. And he knew immediately what it said, and we weren't totally sure, even then. We never said what we thought it said. Yeah, black bear cub kept on Commodore Scrappy. Well, it turns out that's actually 100% true, and you can go to the USS Constitution Museum website, and you can go look that up. It's there. But the issue was, or the problem I had, not problem, but interesting fact I have with it is we did read more research. I did a lot more research. I found that only 5 what they called boys ever died on the ship, on the Constitution, in the 1800s. These were boys, and actually one of our investigators saw the face of this boy that the first night. He said he was like 12 or 14 years old. And that's what they would have been, like anywhere from 6, believe it or not, at age 6 to age 16, you were called a boy on the ship. That was your designation. And but only 5 died. 2 died of what they call bilious fever, which is dysentery. 2 fell from the mast, and 1 drowned. Okay, and they all died in the 1800s. Okay. So now, how does a boy who died in the 1800s know about a black bear cub from 1932?
Ooh.
And tell us about it in 2010?
Whew. Wow.
That's consciousness.
Yes.
He's still learning. He's still, and you think about it. Why say that? And a bear. Well, to a 12, 14-year-old boy, having a black bear cub on the ship is, wow, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Wow. And he's helping to give the tour. Don't forget, to me, it's like saying, don't forget to tell him about the bear. Tell him about the bear. The bear's really important, right? To a 12, 14-year-old boy, it would be, right?
Wow.
That'd be like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
You know? He's still there. He's still learning. His consciousness is there.
Wow.
And that to me is proof there's life after death. That can't happen unless there is, unless your consciousness exists after your body.
Absolutely.
So people say to me, well, why didn't you cross him over, that poor kid? If you listen to number one, it's the USS Navy's ship. I can't do anything without their permission. But number 2, if you listen to any of those EVPs, and they're on our website, the sound of this kid's voice, he's very happy. Mm-hmm. He's content to be there. He's still following orders. We caught him responding to an order that was given. Mm-hmm. He's okay. Mm-hmm. He's not upset about anything. He's happy to be on that ship. Mm-hmm. And he's not the only one there. There's other spirits that are there as well as crew members of that ship. So he's not alone, I don't think, either. I think he's aware, and some of these are aware of each other. So, but he follows the guys around on the ship. He follows the crew members around, and I think he's trying to help in certain things.
He's found something that he's happy doing.
He's found his little piece of heaven.
That's something. And you'll find lots of that.
Yeah, that one has always stuck with me, and it's actually something I wrote about. I wrote about that in my book too.
Nice.
I covered.
Very cool. And you do find some like that. I mean, I worked in a haunted bar. We had one who, I don't know how you look at this, but I call him a jumper. And he was just basically a human spirit who decided he wanted to hang at this bar. I have no history, like who it could be or anything like that. There's no, finished story here. But as I was bartending, you could tell. You could see sometimes you'd see a gray mist, and sometimes you could just tell by the way that the customers at the bar were reacting. He would go right behind him and like slap this one or poke this one, or, you could see him go right down the line. And it almost seemed like if there was somebody at the bar who was really homesick, because I was right outside of Redstone Arsenal. It was out in Alabama in the Army. And there was a lot of TDY. So there was a lot of guys and, people that were, away from home for months, and they'd be real homesick or whatever. And boy, I'll tell you, if somebody came in real tired and depressed, the next minute, boy, he'd be up playing pool, dancing around and drinking stuff that he didn't normally drink, and just for a few minutes. And then this thing would be gone, and they'd have a headache, and they'd go right back to their body language and everything. They'd go right back to the way they were acting before. But that one was one, and then there was another one who we got a little bit of communication with. Knew he was dead, had no intention to cross him, was going to stay there, was going to drink, was going to maybe cause a bar fight on a Friday night if he wanted to. And that was the end of that. He wasn't leaving, And that's it. It's free will. Sometimes you explain to these people, then they don't want to go. They have no intention of crossing. Right. Do you ever run into that?
Yeah. Well, like I said, I don't think that kid would cross over if I tried to anyway. But yeah, we've had ones. They don't want to leave. They ain't going nowhere. Okay. Well, you're gonna have to learn to coexist then.
Exactly.
Exactly. And it does work sometimes. It can work, or sometimes there is no coexistence, and the family ends up having to leave.
Yeah.
But the next family in don't experience anything.
Isn't that funny?
And I think that's because of people personality. Some clash, some don't. Sometimes you just look at a person and say, I don't like them.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but I don't like them.
Sure.
And then the next one's like, oh, okay, that person's cool. So it can happen. It can happen.
Absolutely.
Hey, what I'd like to do, if you don't mind, because we've been talking for a long time.
Yes.
I'd actually I'd like to, if you don't mind, let Steve and Carly talk.
Sure.
And she's one of my investigators, and I'd like to give maybe the last bit here, or however you go on a long time you want to talk for. I think you're say an hour and a half. We're going on an hour and a half. We were at 1 hour 13 minutes, something like that. If you don't mind.
No, bring her in. Bring her in. Let them talk and have a good time.
I'll give my selfless plug now too, just quickly. Just say if anybody's looking for me, you can find me on Facebook. Just look up Jack Kenna. You'll find me on there. The website is spiritsofnewengland.org. My books are on Amazon.com. It's Hauntings, Ghosts, and Demons, as well as Paranormal Research, Comprehensive Guide to Building a Strong Team. Both of those books are out there on Amazon.com, as well as my comic book, which is Spirits of Forgotten Souls of Bay Path, is out there, and both of those on Amazon.com. And they're also on BarnesandNoble.com. So there's my selfless plug. With that, I do want to turn it over to my very new, she's a beginner, investigator, Carly. So Steve or Cisco, if you want to ask her lots of questions, please do. You're going to help me bring her up in this. She's brand new to this whole investigating stuff.
Wonderful.
So here she is, Carly Hall.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Carly, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, wonderful. Thanks for joining the conversation. So how does it feel? You've been doing this a little while now? Is you just new to the group?
Yeah, I met Jack about it almost at the last Ocean State Maritime.
Less than a year ago.
Less than a year ago. So.
Yeah, he's a nice guy. He really is.
It'll be a year this coming July.
Awesome.
Nice. And you learn so much. How did you get into this? What interested you? The very first thing when you knew, that's something I want to learn more about. What was it?
Oh, I've had plenty of experiences as a child, and I've always been sort of interested in it. But ever since I've met Jack, it's kind of spiraled.
Oh, yeah. He has that effect on people.
Into now. Yeah.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, I cause problems for people. See that?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's great. What were some of the experiences? Were you seeing? Did you live in a haunted house, or are you just one of the people, kind of person that sees things wherever you go? Tell us a little bit about your experiences.
Yes. So when I was younger, I realized that I do have abilities to contact spirits, and I developed some attachments that were not necessarily positive, but I do have other attachments that are positive, and some other family incidents, including the death of my father, which helped push me into the direction of the paranormal. I have seen apparitions, have been touched, contacted others in dreams, the whole shebang.
Wow. Wow. And that's great now that you're finding, you found pathways in your life to help control that and try to understand it a little bit.
Oh, yes.
Good. What are some of the
Jack
things
is
you do?
definitely a huge help with that.
For just before I get off track here, I like to try to give a little bit of guidance. We can never kind of pinpoint for an individual, but for young people that are experiencing those things, what are some of the things that helped you, on your path? Did you go to somebody who knew a little bit about it? Were you able to talk to somebody? Did you go into meditation, grounding? What did you do?
Oh my God, I've done all that. But it started off with my mother. My mother had a lot of experiences all her life. And she just used to talk to me about them all the time. And by doing that, it kind of piqued my interest. I was having some experiences in our own house. Nothing bad. I'd hear somebody call my name. It always sounded like my mother. And that's when my mother kind of realized I was maybe sensitive like she was and started talking about all her experiences. So she kind of set me on the path in a way. Mm-hmm. And then I just learned over the years, to talk to other people about it. Always ask questions, reach out to other people, gain more knowledge. I have some very good friends of mine who taught me about meditation and working with all that and all those techniques to order to connect better with my own self. So, yeah, I've done all. I even learned, cleansings and how to do that properly and keep going with it, And that's what we're teaching Carly here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Right on. Always helps to have a guide.
Less than a year.
And Steve, you're real big in that too. We're always talking about cleansing, grounding, making time for yourself. And you're going out into that great big world filled with everybody's emotions and, the ground, like my native roots tell me, the ground remembers, the wind remembers, the trees remember. I mean, everything. You're mixed into everything. And it can be just bombarding. And you feel like you're just dragging through like the mud sometimes. And it's just best to do that. And Steve, you do your grounding stuff. You have your crystals. You have things you're comfortable with. And Carly and Jack, you've got yours. Now, for kids that are going through this, a lot of times they're reaching out and they're looking for a path to take. What would be some advice you could give them? Is there, get into books and psychic development? What would you give out advice-wise?
Go ahead, Carly, because you've been going down this path. You've learned some things already. Well, I'll let you speak to what you've done yourself to move yourself forward.
Pretty much just found mainly what I was comfortable with, whether it be the guidance of my family members who had passed. They said, just stay positive, keep smiling no matter how down you're feeling, and that'll help boost the light inside of you to help keep going. Books definitely were a huge help. I was a big reader as a child, so I enjoyed a good majority of the books that I've read, and they were very informative. I didn't necessarily talk to a lot of people about it, but mainly just found the light within myself and used that as like a big, nice, warm blanket, as a good shield.
That's beautiful. And it's beautiful and it's true. I tell people all the time, the light is within you, and you just pull it out and surround yourself. Imagination, we've been talking this whole show about the mind and imagination and perception. And it's not easy to remember those things when you're going through a lot. But I'll tell you that just that one thing about the bubble, just putting yourself in that protective bubble of light and just imagining it around. I've actually used that going into work because I knew I was going to face a lot of negative stuff, and just seeing people actually almost repelled by it in some ways. They were coming at you with a negative, like they were upset and they just kind of like changed a little bit. It really is a powerful thing to do. Even just grounding, like going into a shower and just imagining the water, which is an energy thing anyway, it's an element. washing over you and washing away all the negativity and going down the drain and just repeating any kind of mantra you want. I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm positive today. And before you know it, you start carrying that, And I think a lot of people are just looking for that switch that they can turn on and off. But you're reaching out and trying to find it in other places. If you reach in yourself first, and then the other stuff seems to come to you in it's amazing. Like we said in the beginning, attract. You're going to attract. If you're trying to be happy, you can power through just about anything. And that's my advice anyway. Steve, how about you?
Yeah, I agree. The cleansing, the protection, whatever higher power you believe in, sage, smudge, you can burn sage, you can burn cedar, salt, putting salt in the corners of your home or across the doorway. Like you guys are in a hotel tonight. Anytime I go into a hotel, I'll smudge it and sprinkle salt in the corners of the room. You don't know what's been in there before you were there or what's happened in that room. So I'll open the door, prop it open, and say, okay, anything negative, anything that's not supposed to be here, get out. I'm here now. And luckily, I had a maternal grandmother that gave me a lot of advice and guided me through this. It sort of skipped a generation. I have abilities that my grandmother had, my mother, not so much. But my grandmother, fortunately, recognized that in me. Out of all the grandchildren, she had 10 kids, so there was lots and lots of grandkids. But out of all of them, I was the one that she centered on and taught me about things like scrying and folk tradition and herbal remedies and how to listen to yourself and to your gut instinct. And her best piece of advice, I think it was, if something bothers you, if you feel that negative energy and stuff, leave it alone. Don't delve into that farther, because it can consume you. It can, if you don't know how to put those barriers up and protect yourself, you can go down a very dark path unknowingly at first.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think what Carly said too, that she had positive attachments, and she reached out to her people who had passed for guidance as well. And we do that in the Native American community. We're always talking to our ancestors, and I'm constantly asking them for help and guidance. It's like, and reach out to your spirit guides. I believe everybody has them. Everybody has different names for everything, but reach out to them, for positive light, because everything we've said tonight, this can be a very scary and unknowing, and we don't understand it. And look, we've all been in this a long time. We understand some little aspects of things, things that we're comfortable saying that we understand, until something changes that. The next thing. And that's just the way it is.
Fast rules.
Right. But the main thing is, going at this with a positive attitude, and don't let it take you over. Always be happy, take care of yourself, and look into the positive thing. Like I said, there'll be things. Steve and I always had a joke, because he's had run-ins with black-eyed kids and things like that. And I've always joked, I said, boy, if I get that knock on my door, I'm just going to start singing, a happiest song I can. Because Jack said the same thing. Things can't be around that positive. So if you just take away anything tonight, think that it's the power of positive. And, I really, really believe that. Are you feeling that way, Carly, too?
Oh, yes, definitely. Definitely.
There you go.
Put out that light, because darkness can't exist where there's light. You've got to have enough light to overshadow or take care of the darkness, drive it out of the shadows, and expose it to light. And that's just a great way to think about it.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
And I've always found that people have told me, it's so hard to stay positive and stuff. It's like, there's some days when you think you just can't do it, and I always tell them, just smile. Even if you're not feeling happy, just smile, because pretty soon you're gonna find that it's gonna turn into positivity. Positivity always finds a way. Always. You just gotta let it in.
I agree. I had a friend that he would call himself a hate hunter. Before, I guess that's older than ghost hunter. I'm not sure. But he had a lady friend, was just a real good friend from high school. And she was going through all this stuff. It's a long, long story. But in her house, it was just, you could walk into her house and it just felt very heavy and cumbersome. And he wasn't sure in what case, was she causing it? Was it attracted to her? He went in, he said, look, I'm going to come every night. I'm going to stick with this. And I'm going to come after work. And every night he sat there, he went and got joke books. And he would just read her jokes till she couldn't stop laughing anymore. And then he'd leave the joke. But he said, when you start feeling bad, you read these jokes out loud and you just laugh and laugh and laugh. And by gosh, if they didn't, whatever it was in there, they ran it out with joke books. Just laughter. Isn't that the funniest thing?
I'm going to remember that one. I am going to remember that one.
Just some really silly jokes because it's laughter. They say laughter is the best medicine, and you can't, when you're really laughing, even if it's something silly, you make yourself feel more positive too. Or singing. Like, I'll take my shoes off and dance barefoot, sing outside, and I'm sure I don't get bothered by my neighbors. I'm sure they think I'm a Looney Tune from, but so
they stay away.
They stay away and they leave me alone. That lady over there, she's crazy. But I'll tell you what, I have a yard full of animals and the birds sing and they all come out and hang out here, so I must be doing something right.
There you
definitely.
go.
But I can't tell you how glad I am to have you guys here tonight. And Carly, are you going to be on this show too? Are you going to be telling your story here on the show coming up that Jack's there for?
Not this show, no. It's just me being interviewed for as a quote expert, right? For
yeah.
You know how that is.
Yeah.
People get mad about that. I don't use that term. It's the TV shows that do. Right?
I know.
Lack of a better term, I guess. But
you're an expert for me.
I guess.
I'm here to learn.
I know a little. Some people know a lot more than me, but whatever.
I know. It's so funny.
And Carly, keep a journal. Whatever you do, write everything down so that you can remember it. You can look back on it and reflect. Remember what brought about a situation or what brought about, a positive change. And that's invaluable.
Yep.
And then someday you'll have a book of your own you can publish.
That's right. Keep a journal. That's good advice. That really is good advice.
Actually.
Yeah, a lot of stories.
Yeah, she does. But she might be actually telling her story on another TV show. We won't talk about that quite yet.
Yeah.
But that might be coming. So we'll let you know if it does.
Well, I almost came out there with you, Jack. When you were put out that thing on Facebook, I said, oh, my gosh, I don't have a passport. Why does it have to be in Canada?
Because they always keep coming from Canada. I don't know.
I know. It's so funny.
Asked me today. It's what the border guard asked us today. You know what he said? I told him I was coming up here to film for, be interviewed for a TV show. And he goes, well, can't they do that through Skype? I'm like, no.
So funny. Steve and I almost did, what is it, Fear in the Woods? I don't know. I think they've changed the name of it a couple times.
Yeah,
but I
they've
think
changed
Fear
the
in the
name
Woods.
so many times. But it just couldn't get our schedules to mesh with theirs.
Yeah. Right. But it was just one of those things. I had to go to Pennsylvania. I'm out here by where you are, Jack. I'm out in New Jersey, so I was going to go to Pennsylvania for it. And then I thought about it the last minute, and I thought, man, I'm just. Sometimes you get on there and they change your story, and then you're kind of stuck with that.
I mean, even our house media, who I've done a lot of work with, is really like Haunted Case Files, Paranormal Survivors. They're most of the time really good at getting it, 80 to 90% correct. I have had they really messed up, though.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen often.
Yeah.
But it has happened, like, in all the years since 2014 I've been working with them, it happened twice. Okay? So I forgive them for it, because they were tough cases to really talk about anyway, because they were over a couple of years of time. But sometimes they really mess it up and make a mess of it.
And then there's nothing.
I've had some print interviews like that where it was. They take it out of context, or they misquote you, or sometimes they just make stuff up because, they want to sell magazines or newspapers. But it's like, I never said that. I would never say that. And then there I am quoted saying
Yep. It happens, but
not our house media. They don't take you out of context. They at least put in what you say is what you say.
Yeah.
And they use your actual footage. But sometimes they just changed the story a little too much. And it's like, that actually never happened. But you didn't have me saying it happened either, so I don't know.
Yeah.
You just made it up.
And with TV, it's infotainment, if you will. And the entertainment part, sometimes they have to, they have an artistic, creative license there to make it a little more dramatic or a little more whatever, just to kind of put it over the top. I think, and I understand that.
Yeah, and in their case, too, in their defense, you've got to imagine that it's really hard to recreate some of these situations, I mean, here we are living the stories and we're telling the stories, and then they have to imagine how it looks and try to recreate it, and that's got to be difficult. But I have heard a lot of good things about the producers of that show, and they really tried to do it as best as justice as can. And good for them. Yeah, everybody messes up once in a while. Yeah, and good for them. I mean, Bill Bean has talked about him too, and he said that, that they're really good with that. And it's good because I'm glad, because when we were young, we're all, pretty, except for Carly, you're the baby here. But, we're all around the same age. When we were growing up, we had to really scratch for information. We might have had sightings or In Search Of or that show around Halloween, Unsolved Mysteries or something when we were younger, and books, and talk to, the elders and stuff. And I got really scared because I had Native American elders, and they're so quiet. Oh, gosh. And they talk in parable,
And sometimes it was even hard to find books. If you grew up in a small town like me, you go to the bookstore, everything's very mainstream, very conservative. And it wasn't until much later on that I found like a Frank Edwards book in a drugstore. I'm like, wow, this really opened everything up, because he wrote about the strange and the unusual. There's a lot of Fortean events and things like that. And then found out he'd written other books, and there you go. It just really took off. And like in Cisco's experience, she had a reference library and tell her, oh, well, ghosts don't exist. There are no true ghost stories.
Exactly. When I was 9.
Right. Yeah. Exactly, right?
Yeah. So now I'm just, I'm so glad that, people are putting their stories out there. That's why Steve convinced me to write my book, because he said the stories will die with you if you don't write them. Right. So I think that's good that we're all out there. We're getting out there. We're putting out that information for the the ones that are trying to get information because they're having experiences. And I can't thank you guys enough. We've taken up so much of your time, and I know you want to go investigate that hotel and see if you got any ghosts there.
You'll wander around it a little anyway.
I even brought my key too.
Did you?
There you go.
Right.
Yay.
You didn't start across the border with that.
I'm really impressed with Carly's enthusiasm there, and the want, the desire to learn this. So Carly, stay in touch with us and let us know, your path to whatever you're on there to development, and then love to hear your stories sometime.
Yes, please.
I'll say this about her too. She's a great evidence reviewer.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And please come on our Gatekeepers page on Facebook. It's Journey Through the Gate, Paranormal Portal Podcast, Gatekeepers on Facebook. Join our group so you can come in and, help answer people's questions. It's great because we have a lot of people talking back and forth on there. And we'd love to stay in contact with you, too, and come back and we'll give you a whole episode. You can tell us all your experiences and everything, and what you found out, and what's changed for you and your, thought patterns on this. It'd be great to have you. We're glad you were here tonight.
Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. And of course, we can always see Jack. And tell us when on Haunted Case Files is on Sunday nights.
They've been messing around with the schedule, but it's usually supposed to be on Sunday nights. I hope it's going to be back on this Sunday night. They were putting another show on for a while. I know it's not. People keep asking me if it's finished, and it's not finished yet. I know there's some more episodes. Travel Channel is just being weird about their scheduling. So, but yes, it's supposed to be on Sunday nights at like 10 o'clock. Just keep your eye open for it. It'll be back.
Yeah, or get on Jack's Facebook page, and, he always puts a lot of information. Something else I really appreciate Jack doing is you get on there and you do Q&A. Sometimes you'll go live on Facebook, and real informative. It's great to hear a lot of people's questions and just having fun. And one of the fun things to do seems to be when you're home watching Haunted Case Files, you show Jack a picture of you watching Jack on TV, and then you send it to Jack.
Or fake Jack. Or fake Jack is good too. Yeah.
It's always fun, and I'm so glad you were here, and I loved our conversations in Gettysburg, and I look forward to seeing there again, and maybe you'll be up here at the expo in New Jersey, or I'll catch you soon. I owe you a big hug, Jack.
For a unit this year, but we're gonna try to get down there next year. He's talking to John about that.
Yeah.
But we are doing our Facebook Live thing. We're doing Michelle Durocher and I. We're doing it every other week now.
Nice.
So we're gonna be on this coming week, the 23rd.
Well, look for me. I'll be there in the crowd, cheering you on.
All right, we'll be answering everybody's questions again. And hey, if we see you on there, and if you got just need to download the Be Live app to your phone, and we can bring you on with us.
Oh, I'd love that. That would be awesome. And I thank you so much for spending so much time with us tonight, telling us great stories. And the bear, oh my gosh, I got to get the book and read about the kid with the bear now. That's a beautiful story. And that's it right there. We're we always say here, what's on the other side of the gate? Let's find out together. And by golly, we're finding out together. There's, proof of the afterlife, and I love it. So there you go, guys. Thank you so much, and you have a wonderful evening.
It was a pleasure. Good night, everybody.
Yeah, it was an honor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Good night, Carly. Well, I cannot thank my friend Jack Kenna for coming on this show and giving a lot of his insight. I thank him very much, and I look forward to seeing you again, Jack, in Gettysburg or the New Jersey Expo or wherever you decide to go, because it's always nice to sit down and have a nice long conversation with you, my friend. And Carly, our new friend, thank you for coming on and bringing your insight in. It's always nice to see somebody not new to this, this subject, but just coming in and getting involved and joining investigative group and getting your new insight in there, and you just sound so you have a delightful personality and just a lovely energy, and I just wish you all the best and your endeavors, and please come on the show again and tell us all about your adventures. We'd love to hear it. My friend Steve Stockton, we didn't get to tell you a lot about where to find his stuff, but of course he's got Strange Things in the Woods, More Strange Things in the Woods, and My Strange Life. And I'll tell you, they're great. They're great reads. They're fast page turners. Jack's books all on Amazon, and of course seeing him on Haunted Case Files and Paranormal Survivor, and he just pops up all over the place. And now the new one, we'll all be looking for that one coming out of Canada, which is, I'm going to say it again, Canada puts out some really good paranormal shows. Just look into it. They're really well done, and I've always liked them. Look into that. So also, don't forget, we've got our Facebook group page, Journey Through the Gate Paranormal Portal Podcast Gatekeepers, and that is on Facebook. Come on in there, become a member. We're starting some new things now. We are still found on Conflict Radio. I don't know how long that's going, or if it's changing, or if it's getting a new page. There's so many new things going on with YouTube and algorithms now. It's hard to keep track. And I just turned my stuff over to Conflict, and I'm not sure how long that's going to be on there. But Steve has decided he's going to take our episodes and go ahead and make them more like a video, like putting pictures and things like that, like with the Dorothy Kilgallen story, a lot of reference photos and things like that. And he's going through our videos, and he's going to start a YouTube channel for Journey Through the Gate, and that's going to be fantastic. He really likes doing the videos for YouTube, so we're going to hand that over to him. So as soon as we have that link, we're going to give that to you. So that's up and coming. We of course have the book, We Are All Children in the Wilderness of the Afterlife, a guided tour through a haunted life, and that's co-authored by myself and Steve. That is available on Kindle, and we are getting it into the paperback form, and Steve is doing that as well. So hopefully soon that'll be done. We thought we had it, but we put it through and it all changed on us. So the PDFs and all that craziness, I can't explain it, but it just, it was awful. It threw paragraphs all over the place and split things up and changed things. So we're redoing it, and that will be in paperback form soon, and I will let you know. Right now it's available in ebook. I think it's at $7.99, somewhere right in there. We've kept it low. So I hope you enjoy it. We're getting a lot of really great reviews on it. People are enjoying it, and I loved writing it, and I just love hearing that people are enjoying that too. So check that out. Also, if you have any of your own ghost stories or, trips in the light fantastic with the uncanny, please send them in to journeythroughthegate@gmail.com, and we are compiling listener stories to put on a good episode for you. And if you have any guests or, requests or questions for guests or things like that, go ahead and send them in too. I'm on Facebook, and, I always love to talk to my listeners, and thank you so much for being there. We had a little hiatus there, so thank you for being patient over the holidays. A lot of tech issues and new computers and things, trying to get everything straightened out. So I thank you guys for being patient, and we should be able to put out at least one episode every week for you. And thank you for hanging through. I hope everybody enjoyed their holidays and have lots of good memories, and maybe a few ghost stories you'd like to tell. So come on, get a hold of me, and we'll see. We can't get you an episode and tell your experiences too. So I thank you so much. And again, thank you to Jack Kenna for taking time out of your busy paranormal life for coming on here and talking with us. And thank you to all our listeners. And don't forget the most important thing: keep your feet under those covers and keep that closet door shut, because there are things that go bum.